This is In the Trenches, broadcast 45.
Welcome to In the Trenches, where entrepreneurs, artists, writers, designers, inventors, warriors, and leaders share their stories of doing the hard, creative work that impacts all of our lives. Let the journey inspire you to do something worthwhile, build something bold, and create your life's work. And now, your host, Tom Morkis.
Welcome back, everyone, to another broadcast of In the Trenches. Today's guest is Tammy Helfrich of TammyHelfrich.com. How's it going, Tammy?
It's great. Thanks for having me, Tom.
Yeah, so today we're going to probably get into a slew of topics as we were just discussing before the interview, including a little bit of Amazon publishing, a little bit of podcasting, a little bit of blogging. But before we get into those specific topics, tell us a little bit about yourself and about your website, TammyHelfrich.com, and what led you to that.
So thank you again for having me. This is great. I think it's the best way to kind of talk about my journey is I was in corporate America for a very long time, almost 20 years. And just that was the path I was on. I was in sales. I had a great job. I was really doing what kind of everyone expects you to do, get a good, stable job and make a lot of money and do those things. And a few years ago, I just started feeling really restless. And I hadn't really always considered myself a creative person. It's something that I think in the business world, sometimes we tend to just not see ourselves that way anymore. But so I started to feel a little restless. And so I started to do a lot of reading and started to get around a lot of people who were just living differently, which was really attractive to me. And so that's when I started writing. I kind of rediscovered my love of writing. It was something that I had done in a long time ago. And people had always told me that I was good at it, but I never really associated with it with something that really would bring me joy or something that I felt like I was supposed to be doing. So I started my blog about 3 years ago, and it was really just a way for me to kind of push myself creatively. And that is kind of the story of the last couple of years. So I started my blog, started getting around a lot of writers, publishing an ebook on Amazon, again, as a way to kind of push myself to say, this is something that is way outside of my comfort zone. And as I started doing that, then I eventually led to starting my podcast, which is called Right Where You Are. And it's just about making a difference where you are. And so I think the last couple of years can be summed up in just, first of all, understanding that I am creative and that I am an artist, which is something that I had said for a long time I wasn't. And also just pushing myself to try new things and to really break out of the mold that I felt like I had been trapped in for a long time. And I ended up leaving my corporate job earlier this year to take a new position and really focus on helping to develop people and really use my gift of connecting and learning about people to start doing things different. So it's been quite an amazing journey and one that has just really changed my life.
Awesome. So tell us a little bit about like the actual creation of this, in terms of, specifically like tangible stuff in terms of, how you actually started and what your goals were when you first started and how you actually, set about achieving those goals in terms of like growth or promotion and things like that.
Yeah. So with the blog, it was honestly just a real exercise in putting myself out there, which is something that I hadn't really done before. And so I just started really for me and not for, and I've kind of taken this approach with everything that I do of, I feel like there are things that I have learned and experiences that I've had in my life that can be helpful to someone else who is maybe not as far along the road or is, maybe going through some issues that I've gone through. And so that's why I really started my blog, to just be able to put some thoughts out there, help people go through a time of transition. So I write about marriage quite a bit, some difficulties that we've had in our marriages. I write about transition of really seeing your life on one path in one way and then moving it to another one. So as I've done that, I've joined a lot of online groups, gotten into to know other writers and other bloggers. And that's been a great way to help promote the site, but then also just to get to understand how that world works a little bit. And then podcasting is something else that I felt was just an expression of kind of who I was. So people get to know me a little bit more through my voice and the way that I interact with people. And same thing. I mean, I started that as really pushing me out of my comfort zone to say, I love to talk to people, so that's not a problem. But the whole back end process of podcasting, as we were talking about before the show, is really complicated and takes a lot of time. And so that was really a way to push me outside of my comfort zone. And I've had the opportunity to connect with a lot of great people. I've had great interviews on my podcast, and now I'm starting to get more enriched into the podcast world, which is how you and I connected. And it's just amazing to see so many different people and what they're doing. So I guess to answer your question, I would say like obviously getting to know people and getting your name out there is a really important thing. But for me, it's never been so much about the numbers as it is about just sharing from my heart and really trying to make an impact on, even if it's just one person.
So as far as that's concerned, then has like the idea of, is there any business context to this at all? Or is it purely just kind of a passion thing, a hobby thing?
No, I think it's, definitely leads to other things. So being in the, putting a book out on Amazon obviously is a way to put yourself out there. And then being able to, I'm starting to coach people as well. So that's another area. I feel like being diversified in the different things that you're doing is really important. And so that's how I've looked at it. Now, initially, definitely it has started out as a hobby, and it has not been my primary source of income, which I think is a great way to start out. And then as you go, you learn ways to start monetizing your blog and monetizing your podcast and developing a business out of that.
So tell me about that process of actually getting coaching clients. So you said you started coaching. Tell us about that.
Well, right now, again, it's something, I do a lot of things very organically. And so it has been more of me doing that on the back end as more of a learning process. And really, learning to understand, first of all, what do I like about coaching and where do I want to take that? And it's in its pretty early infancy stages, to be honest, but it has been something that's helped me grow and help as I talk to an audience via the blog or via the podcast. One-on-one coaching is different and gives the ability to really help people take those steps forward in what they're trying to do, which has been really impactful.
Take me through the process of writing a book and putting it on Amazon. I'm curious about that. Obviously, I do publishing. I'm always fascinated by people's approach to that when they do it. I'd like to hear your experience.
Well, it was definitely all trial and error. And that's where being around a community of people that are writing was helpful. And it was, writing the book, I had, it was last November, actually, or 2 Novembers ago, I guess. And I did it during NaNoWriMo month, but obviously I wasn't writing a novel, but that was my goal for the ebook, was to get it done. So it was a process of for me, it was outlining it, writing the content, sharing it with other people. I was doing it to be able to do that, getting the cover art for it, and then getting it I actually had someone who helped me format it to get it ready for Kindle versions, and putting it up there. And then just, we went through the option of, I did give it away for a little bit on my site to my subscribers. That was really the main reason why I went through the process of writing it, was to have something for my subscribers. But then I also wanted to go through the process of putting it on Amazon as well. And so it was very complicated at first, just because you don't know what you're doing until you actually go through it. And there's a lot of steps to do it. But it's something that I would definitely recommend that people do, because it just is a really good learning process.
Yeah. And beyond the learning process though, too, tell us a little bit about you, because you kind of alluded to this before, the fact that it helps with having a broader range of, or a broader, more diverse range of offerings and things like that. So how has that actually affected your, platform, so to speak?
Yeah, it's, definitely I had a lot of people that I talked about in my book because it's called Becoming a Life Changer. And it's just about people who are doing things differently. And so sharing their stories and then them being able to share that with their audience as well has definitely increased my platform and, really broadened me to different people that I would not have connected with before, both from being just on Amazon and having the ability for people to find your book. And then also just from kind of collaborating with some of those that were in the book as well.
Sure. So as far as like all this stuff taken together, then, which has been like the most difficult thing that you've worked on? I'm curious because you've touched on obviously a multitude of various kind of content creation, public production and publication, or multiple mediums that you publish content or created content for. Which has been the hardest to I guess start in or create to instigate a project under? Does that question make sense?
Yes, it does. And that's a good question. I think each of them, it's different as you go through it because you're learning. I mean, all of those things I had never done before. And so learning those, like blogging, in the initial stage can be really overwhelming because there's so many options and so many plugins and all different kinds of things that you need to learn. I think I would say probably the most difficult one was the podcast, just because there's so many things behind the scenes that you have to do in order to get it up on iTunes and get it on Stitcher or, and even just in the process of recording and editing and tagging and getting it to the right servers. There's a lot of different steps that people don't realize. And so for me, that really pushed me outside of my comfort zone because don't really consider myself a very technical person. And so I would say that was probably the most challenging, but it's also been the most rewarding for me too, because like I said, I've been able to have some pretty incredible interviews on, and just, now that I'm finding this world of podcasters that is out there. It's almost kind of like how blogging was, a few years ago when people were just starting to get into it, and it's really starting to take off and grow. And it's been a great way to meet a lot of different people.
That's awesome. So what are your goals with it now and going forward?
That's a good question. I'm kind of in the process of rebranding a lot of the stuff that I'm doing. So my website and blogging and the podcast will stay the same that it is. But it's been interesting because in the beginning, it was really more about kind of trying to find the bigger names and, the people that are quite a few steps ahead of where a lot of us are. But over time, it's been what really excites me and is interesting to me are the people who are kind of in the trenches, like you talk about on your show, of they're just making it happen. And a lot of them are working full-time jobs and doing this on the side and really hustling and working in the margins. And those are the kind of people that really excite. That's kind of the direction that we've been going as far as talking to people just who are really just like you and I, who are making it happen. And then also, we've started to, I'm starting to talk a little bit more about marriage as well. That may end up turning into something completely different that my husband and I may do together. But those are just a couple of things that are on the horizon.
Very cool. So specifically then, I guess, which one of those are you planning to address first, and what are your goals for that? Like, how does it fit into the overarching scheme of what you're trying to do here? And I guess on that context, what is the goal, the end state here, at least over the course of the next year to 5 years, of what you want to do with this platform?
Yeah. So the main thing that I really am passionate about is just helping people live into who they're created to be. And so that's what all of the mediums that I am working on have to do with, really from wherever you are right now to where you want to go, and really doing a lot of personal development to get there. So from as far as the blog, definitely I'm in the process of, like I said, rebranding and kind of recreating that entire process right now. The podcast, definitely something that I want to continue and continue to grow. I mean, there's so much room for in the podcasting world for a number of different things with collaborating with different people and bringing new depth to your show and also keeping that consistent. I mean, that's one thing you and I talked about in the beginning is it can be very difficult to keep that consistent just with the amount of work that does go into a podcast. So my goals are definitely to grow that and to help other people in the process. That's one thing that I like to do as far as talking to people and really helping them with products or things that I'm writing about is just to make the process a little bit easier for those who are just starting to get into it.
That's awesome. So what bits of advice do you have for somebody who is just starting out and looking to get into it?
I think the best advice is just to just do it, to put yourself out there, do something that scares you. Write that first blog post. I mean, can be the most difficult thing. Put that first podcast episode out there, and try not to try to figure everything out. I mean, sometimes you just have to put yourself out there and you'll be surprised at what people will respond to. And sometimes, honestly, they won't respond. So it's a matter of you challenging yourself. Like I mentioned a couple different times, a lot of what I've done has been more about me pushing myself outside of my comfort zone than, having this grand plan to impact people. I think most of the successful people that I have talked to and had on my podcast, when they originally started, they had no idea where what they were doing was going to go. And I think that's something that I continue to learn, that things evolve as we become better and we get more skilled at it. And so I would say just put yourself out there and take that first step.
Awesome. So tell us a bit where people can actually reach out to you and connect with you and what you're doing and ways they can support you.
So they can go to my website, which is tammyhelfrich.com. That has all of my information. Also on Twitter, I'm at Tammy Helfrich. Same thing on Instagram, Facebook. My blog is facebook.com/Tammy Helfrich blog. And I would love to connect with you.
Awesome, Tammy. Thanks so much. This is great. I love getting a behind the scenes look at what you're doing. So thank you so much for being on In the Trenches. It's great.
Yeah, Thanks so much for having me.
Absolutely.
And that wraps up another broadcast of In the Trenches. If you're interested in checking out the show notes, just head over to tomworkus.com/podcast to see our latest episodes. Also, I just wanted to give a quick update to fans and listeners of In the Trenches and specifically what I'm working on right now. For the past 2 years, I've been publishing books, my own and others, through Insurgent Publishing, my boutique publishing company. In the past 6 months alone, I've helped 4 individual authors launch their books to bestseller on Amazon, including Dan Norris's The 7-Day Startup and David Nihil's Do You Talk Funny, among others. And both of those books are still top of the charts months after launch. I've learned 2 important things from all this. Number 1, that people still read books. And believe it or not, they're willing to pay for the good ones. And number 2, the $60 billion book industry is only getting bigger and the barrier to entry is only getting lower, which means access to this market has never been closer to the average writer, blogger, or author. It is literally within the grasp of anyone who wants it. But you need to know how to approach it the right way, with patience, with a strategy, and with the right implementation and execution. That's why I've been able to launch so many bestsellers, many that are still top of the charts, because we brought great books to the people who wanted and would pay for them. No slimy sales tactics, just honest, powerful marketing. Now, I want to show other authors and publishers how to do the same. 4 months ago, I launched the pre-beta to a new super secret platform called Publishers Empire. In that time, I've helped a dozen authors and publishers start to bring their ideas to life. And with their help and feedback, we've quickly developed what is, in my opinion, the best, most comprehensive publishing training platform in the world. And now I'm getting ready to open the doors up to a few more students. So if you're interested in being part of a tight-knit family of publishers who help and support one another through their writing and publishing projects, if you want access to over 100 HT training videos to take you through the writing and publishing process, if you want access to proven copy and paste book marketing and sales copy, stuff that we've used to launch bestsellers, and if you'd like professional book covers and templates you could plug your own work into and look like a pro in minutes, and if you'd like all of that while getting the chance to be mentored by me, check out publishersempire.com and sign up to be notified when we launch. That's www.publishersempire.com. I hope to see you there. As always, this is Tom Morkus. If you're listening to this, you are the resistance.
Thank you for listening to In the Trenches. Your creative work doesn't stop here. Join the Resistance, the small but growing army of entrepreneurs and artists putting a dent in the world at www.tommorkis.com. Never fight alone. Join the Resistance.